Hey guys, here is a great soft tissue mobility drill if you're experiencing tension headaches. Now tension headaches typically are going to be unilateral, so they're going to be on one side of the head and they're going to wrap around the ear to the temple, okay? So it's kind of, they call it the ram's horn pattern, okay? Now you're also going to typically feel that start to generate from the upper trap levator and kind of come up the neck to the bottom of the skull, kind of right where the skull meets the spine on either side. You'll feel a lot of tension. So what we're going to do is we're going to release these small muscles at the top, because we all sit here, we all have the chin float up, all of these muscles get tight, it creates that tension. And so one real big release point is at the base of the skull, and these muscles are called your suboccipital muscles, okay? And they're small muscles. They go to your occiput, to your first and second cervical vertebrae. And let me show you how we're going to do it. You're going to take a lacrosse ball, a trigger point ball, and you're going to lay on the floor. You need a firm surface. So I'm going to lay on the ground. I'm going to take this hand, and I am going to find that soft tissue, that kind of right next to right below the skull and right next to the spine. You'll typically feel that tender point, and if you have tension headaches, you'll know exactly where I'm talking. And I'm going to put the ball right there. Now, I want to hold this with this hand, okay? So I'm going to let the ground be my backstop, and I'm going to find that spot. Usually you'll have to kind of work your head and find the tender spot, okay? I'm going to take this other arm, I'm going to take these two fingers, and I'm going to take my chin, and I'm going to do a chin tuck. If you haven't done or seen my chin tuck video, please refer to that so that you have a good baseline for this exercise. But I'm going to tuck my chin, and as I do that, you should feel increased tension through the ball right in that sweet spot. And a lot of times, this will actually recreate a tension headache. You'll actually get a little bit of that kind of tension pull to here, which is okay. That tells you you're A on the right spot, and we're going to let that ball be our acupressure, and we're just going to let that tissue kind of release over the ball. Okay. Now, I like to do a little bit of a hold, a prolonged hold, but I also like to rep it out a little bit. So I'll tilt my chin or tuck my chin, hold for about 10 to 15 seconds, and then release. And then I'm going to tuck the chin, hold for about 10 to 15 seconds, and then I'm going to release. And you can do this as tolerated. You can do this to help prevent tension headaches. You can do this as a treatment when you're experiencing a tension headache. And then if you need to on the other side, you can do the other side. But again, there's not an exact prescription. I like to do a little bit of a hold and then a little bit of a repetition with my chin tuck. This is a great way to start releasing some tightness through here. When we're struggling with range of motion restrictions, or maybe kind of a crick in the neck, a lot of times releasing this upper trap and this levator scap can be a good way to start loosening that neck up. Now I like to find triggers here, but I also like to do some acupressure and then do some releasing where I'm rotating to the point of restriction but not pain, and I'm starting to release these muscles through here. Okay. Now I've got a lacrosse ball, and I'm going to use the door frame. So I'm going to show you from outside to in. So I'm going to put this on my upper trap. I'm going to get into a split stance, and I'm going to find that tender point that I need to release. Once I feel like I've got it, now I'm going to put that pressure here, and now we can start working that range of motion. So I can start with an ear to shoulder, so I can do a side bend. You're really going to feel that tension increase. It's not going to take a ton of motion. Okay, so more of an active release. I can work on rotation. Now when you rotate, remember, when your head is down like this, your tendency is for the chin to tuck up. You want to tuck that chin down so it's nice and neutral, and you're rotating in a neutral position. Now eventually you're going to get to a point where, oh, there, that tension kicks on. I don't really want to push through that. I want this to be somewhat tolerable, and I'm going to rotate away. We're going to rotate away just to that tension point. And you can apply as much pressure as you can or as you can tolerate, but you have complete control over that. Okay, so again, I'm not floating up like this, right? My chin's not coming up, I'm not going into extension. I'm tucking my chin down towards my chest, I'm keeping it there as I rotate away. Now, I've exhausted that specific trigger in my shoulder, right? So I've done my side bend away, ear to shoulder, I've done my rotation away. Now I can look for another spot, right? I can roll it a little further back, which means I gotta get into a better stance, so I'm going to get into a more athletic stance, knee bend, hip bend. I might even drop the trunk down to get to the back side, maybe on top of that shoulder blade. Oh, there's another spot. Now I can do the same kind of release. Now, I'm gonna show you this in frame. If I'm here, right, so right through here we got upper trap. If I want to get to my levator scap, it's back here. So what you're going to do is I'm rolling upper trap when it's here, right? If I want to get back into that levator, I've got to get a little bit back into this point. So you can kind of feel the top of your shoulder blade from there to the top of the shoulder. This is where that levator lives. So now I've kind of pinned this and I've rotated away, or side bent away, I've rotated away. I get into a better split stance, right? I'm going to sink my trunk lower so that rolls the ball posteriorly. Now I can pin some tissue back here, and the thing you want to think about when you're behind the shoulder, a little more on the shoulder blade, is the side bend is still the same. I'm still going to side bend away, but the rotation changes. Now I want to look more towards the armpit at an angle. So I'm not going to pure rotation, I'm going to go to kind of a side bend and rotation down. That's going to really put, so if I'm here, instead of rotate away, it's going to be here, where I'm kind of looking more at this angle. That's really going to put that levator on tension while you're holding down with some acupressure of the lacrosse ball. So do this, and this is more of a tolerance thing, right? There's not a set prescription of how much. You're finding specific trigger points along that muscle, right? And then you're trying to release that. So I usually kind of guideline, I say 10 releases. So 10 side bends, 10 rotations. Find a new spot. 10 side bends, 10 rotations. That's a minimum. You can do more. But use this as a tool to help release the neck slowly. You're not going to get gains throughout in one day. This is a daily thing. I want you to do this a couple times a day to slowly start releasing that neck. All right, now we're going to focus on stability in our neck. So what I mean by that is our neck is generally in this tug of war, right? We've got a lot of powerful muscles in the backside, right? From our upper trap and our levator, and from when we sit like this, a lot of these muscles get tight, they pull our neck backwards, right? Inherently, we're going to have less strength and a lot of weakness in the front side of the neck. And there's a lot of small muscles in the front that are more stability muscles, and they help stabilize. So they get weak, and you get out of balance in terms of that backside to front side stability. Okay, and we tend to get into this type of posture. So what I want to do is give you a way to start working on that deep neck flexion, and you're going to start on your back. It's going to be very simple. Okay, so I'm going to take my chin and I'm going to tuck down. Okay, I don't want to tuck. I'm not trying to tuck as hard as I can where my neck is getting really tight. I just want to tuck it down. And then I'm going to nod up, and I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, back down. And then I'm going to relax. I'm going to tuck, I'm going to nod up. Now maintaining that tuck as I nod up, I'm swiveling my head. I'm not just jamming my head backwards into the ground. So I'm tucking, nodding up. Now start with just the tuck, the nod, right? Then you can add the tuck And then you can add some time to it to really challenge those stabilizers. Quick, simple exercise. This is something that I like to start on the ground with because you can really feel, it gives you a sense of stability in terms of, okay, I have the floor giving me feedback, and now I know where my tuck is, right? Whereas if I'm standing or sitting, it's like you don't have that same sense of where my head is in space, and so you could actually hear what you're tucking rather than tuck to the appropriate, in the appropriate direction. So doing it with feedback from the ground is great to start, and eventually you can work into more dynamic exercises like the next one. I'm going to give you a more standing, you're still using something for feedback, but you're kind of reworking and re-educating these deep neck flexors to start kicking on during other exercises. Now we've got to work on some shoulder or scapular stability. So I'm going to run through a series of exercises on this Bosu ball, and I'd like you to start with no weight, but then we're going to add weight, and there's a couple different ways you can go about this. And you can kind of be more isolated, or you can kind of work both at the same time. But if you're going to do both, there's a couple things you need to think about. And if you do isolated, there's a couple things you need to think about. Okay. So here is the 2 or 3 actually exercises that I want you to use this for. Now, if you don't have one of these, you can use the side of your bed. So a lot of times you go to the edge of the bed or the angle of the bed, and it can create the same type of effect as this ball. So I'm going to roll onto the ball. Okay, my feet are wide behind me. I've got my yoga mat to give me a little traction so I'm not sliding backwards. Now I'm going to come out over the ball. I don't want people to be here, right? The chin is on the ball. You got to be out over the ball. Now, the first step with all of these exercises is generating that swivel, right? That chin tuck. You got to engage those deep neck flexors. You should be pretty flat at the top. I don't want any extension in your neck. So I've tucked here. Now, if I wanted to do both, you're going to start with the T. Now, I'm going to have my thumbs up, and I'm going to squeeze my shoulder blades together and come in line with my body. I'm not breaking my neck. I'm not extending my neck up as I engage my shoulder blades. And I'm going to hold. I'm going to give it a small 1 or 2 count at the top. I'm going to go nice and slow and controlled. I'm not going to rep it out as fast as I can. I'm going to do about 12 to 15 reps. Now, if I wanted to make this harder, I could grab a 1 to 3 pound weight, and I'm still controlling the movement. So there's that. Now, if I wanted to isolate, I could put one hand here. I could have one hand here. I'm tucking my chin, and I could isolate one side versus the other. Same type of thing. Now, the next exercise is going to be a double or a Y. Okay, so I'm going to have my arms out in a Y formation. One of the big mistakes I see is either people are supermaning in front, or they think a Y is way too wide. They're almost back into the T, right? Think Y. You've got to be up, but you can't be too close. So 45-degree angle from here. So 90, 45, neutral, right? So get in that 45-degree angle. My elbows are locked. A lot of people try to do this with the elbows bent. Now, I definitely don't want people to use weight on this one until you've mastered it. Okay? No load until you've mastered the movement. So my thumbs are up, my chin is tucked. I'm going to come up to about even with my chin, and that's it, back down, maybe my ear. But a lot of people will try to they'll get way up here, right? They're trying to really get up there. You're going to jam your lower back up and your upper back, okay? So think, you're not trying to go into any more range of motion than you have. You're just trying to get the lower traps below your shoulder blades to engage. Now you can load that up with 1 to 3 pounds, but you have to have the right form before you load it up. So again, 12 to 15 reps. Now the last exercise, or just to backtrack just a little bit, you can obviously isolate. Okay, just like the T, I can isolate one side versus the other. Now if you're going to isolate, you got to make sure you're not rotating or helping with the body. Okay, my chin is still tucked and I'm isolating. Now the last move would be a W. So I've got my palms down, my chin is tucked, and I'm gonna come back into a W, and I'm gonna squeeze and hold 2, 3, and then I'm gonna come back down. You can do the same thing by adding some load to this once you've got the technique and the form down. All right. I like to kind of flow through this. I like to do them both together, but I've also done it with some isolation, especially if you don't have one of these and you're on your bed. Sometimes it's better to isolate by hanging one arm off the bed and working on it. Here's a supine bottom-up kettlebell press. I want you to lay on the ground. You're going to be on your side. Now I'm going to hold the weight, and I'm going to actually use my other hand to support, okay? We're going to roll over onto your back. You're going to have this left hand or this left shoulder at a nice 45-degree angle, okay? Now, you're going to be on your back, and I want you to stabilize that weight, press up, and then control that back down to the ground. Now some keys here is you want your wrist in line with your elbow, and as you go up, that wrist elbow line should match up with your shoulder. That should not go, that should be a straight line. You should not have the wrist or the elbow bent so that you don't have a straight line. You should not have that wrist or elbow leaning out over. You're going to tip back. So it really forces you to have good scapular position. And I'm gonna go up just to straight. I don't need to press, okay? I need to generate some tension in my shoulder blades. And I'm coming here. I've got the line, wrist, elbow, shoulder, nice and straight. And then I'm coming back down along that same angle that I started with. So when you come back down, try not to bring it out or bring it close to the rib cage. It stays in the same plane you started on. So start with a light kettlebell weight, something that makes this easy so the form and the technique is perfect. And then you can start building on that with a little bit more load. And I would start with a higher rep total, lower weight. So maybe do 25 reps of a 5 or 10 pound kettlebell, and then work yourself up, lowering that rep total, making sure that the technique is perfect. This is a great drill to do when you're trying to emphasize scapular stability with a pull-up. So you can do this pre-pull-up, or you can do this when you're trying to work yourself back into pull-ups after an injury. But a key with the pull-up is that we want our shoulder blades kicking in to stabilize the shoulders as we pull our bodies up. Okay, so you go to the bar, you're going to grab the top. I want you to let your body hang, okay? And in this position, all you're going to do is pull your shoulder blades back and down and count to 5. Okay? And then you're going to slowly let them extend back out. Back and down, hold, count to 5. Slowly let them extend back down. Try not to arch the back as you go up. I don't want it to look like that. I want the core to be engaged. I don't want the back to arch as you pull down. Okay? So the number of reps isn't as important as the technique. If you're using this as a drill to get back into pull-ups, I'd want you to do, about 10 reps. If you're using this as a warm-up, you maybe want to do 4 or 5 reps and then start getting into pull-ups.